Welcome to the show. So most of you know me for all my editing stuff, but outside of that, I'm actually a music school student and I'm a violinist in my school's orchestra. We had a concert this past weekend and I had to look up where the performance venue was. You know how in some GPS apps you could see like the different ETAs and routes you could take depending on your mode of transportation? Well, that's my first problem of the day. I had been looking at the one for driving. I can't drive. So in order to get there on time, I literally had to run, not walk, run. Funnily enough, I actually passed like some of my fellow orchestra members on the way and I was like, dude, are you not concerned about being late? I didn't actually say that, but that was like all in my mind. But anyway, I'd never been to this venue before. It's really nice inside, but the pictures online make it seem a lot bigger than it really is. Especially the stage. The stage is awfully small. Also, it's really echoey when there's like no one in the audience, so the sound just keeps compounding and compounding until you just can't comprehend anything. But that's all besides the point. I made it to my seat. I had enough time to like get set up and get tuned when literally all of my strings slipped. Yeah, I would say rehearsal went well enough. I got most of my cues right, I played mostly everything in tune. We then got a couple of hours to ourselves before showtime, so I left to grab some food and get changed into concert attire. That's also the time I would typically spend like getting locked in and focused.
Oh my god, so dumb. Oh my god, where are you going? Call time's 7. It's 6:12 right now. 6:13. I just like being stupid early because if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. Oh my god! Oh, these two actually match okay. This is blue though. It's like turning blue. Where the f is my raincoat?
Okay, so you remember how like all my pegs slipped before dress rehearsal? I think that might have bent my violin bridge a little bit. I mean, my bridge has like pretty consistently recently had issues with like bending. So since I had some extra time before the concert, I decided that it would be a good idea to fix it, which is always kind of scary because there's always the chance of like pushing it too far and it collapsing.
I hate this so much.
It also forced me to retune my strings again because the tension of them changed when my bridge moves.
Hey.
After that, it was finally time to get on stage for the show, and I felt pretty good warming up. I mean, I was already physically warm because of all the running that I did, but I was also like just mentally there already since like I've been working on my instrument, so it's like, okay, you're in music mode now. The concert opens with some opening remarks, and we play the first two pieces fine. I mean, I made some mistakes, but it is what it is. Can't say anything. And then the third piece starts. My A string was gone. Unfortunately, I was not filming at the time, so here's a recreation of what happened. I looked to my stand partner and we're like, oh my god, we don't know what to do. I looked to the person behind me, they're like, I have a spare string, but it's in my case, which is not on stage. Our cue is now coming up, so I'm like, oh no, there's no way we could just like rectify this. So my stand partner and I were like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna fake it. So for like the first page of that third piece, I'm like not making any sound. I'm just doing the fingering as if it was normal, but not making any sound. But after that, I'm like, dude, no, this is just not gonna work. It's not gonna sell because I'm not, like, no, just no. So I decide, you know what? I'm just gonna refinger this whole fucking piece. I'm gonna refigure out how to play every single note to avoid the A string at all costs. Obviously, I have to shift up really high on the D string, but at least for the super higher notes, I have my E string still, so it's fine. I also have to do that for the fourth piece because it's right after the third one. Great! But thankfully, after that fourth piece, we had an intermission, so after Maestro was like,
"We will be back after a brief intermission."
Oh my god, this is so bad. I don't have an extra. TV. My string snapped in the beginning of the third piece, so I had to re-finger that piece and the fourth one.
Music is so contemporary, but it's super cool. Wait, so you have to do the whole thing on like D string, because your A string was the one that snapped, right?
Yeah. You know how long the intermission is or no?
20 minutes.
20? Okay, that's okay.
You have time.
Kind of. Except I never did this before, so I don't know how to do it.
Oh.
I think I got something going. This is working. This is working. This is working. Oh, this is an old string.
Oh my god, my friend from Harvard's actually watching this. No f***ing way. And a lot of my friends are smart unis and I'm here. Okay, I can't
Dude,
say
this is a good. This is a
I
good
can't say
uni.
this. One of my friend's boyfriend said I look like Wednesday Adam. That's such an insult.
I mean, it's funny because Jenny Ortega's killing it these days. I just changed the string. Yo, I just. I hope the people like in the audience don't think I'm a psycho because I bolted from that thing so fast.
I'm like, jeez, maybe they just think she's in the bathroom.
I don't know if they saw the seam snap. It definitely was audible though. Okay, we're done.
Oh, that sounds kind of yay!
Oh my
Under pressure.
Under pressure.
Ideally, you wouldn't want to change a string in the middle of a performance or when you're about to perform. When you put it in the violin and you let it like stretch for the first time, it's gonna want to contract back, which means it's gonna go out of tune. All you can really do, especially in the performance situation, is to just like play on it a bunch, keep trying to get it in tune, just so that it can at least stick a little. It did not stick. I definitely had an out of tune A string by the end of that concert, but thank goodness I had a chance to replace the string because our next piece was the William Tell Overture. While I was playing, I wasn't really like paying full attention as I typically would. I was just like relying on my ears to catch everything, and in my head I was like beginning to process what had just happened. This has just been an awful day, but you know what? We made something work, and it's going actually really well. Wait, why is it going really well? Like, really, really, really well. Also, I just had a Ray Chen moment. I'm definitely gonna make a video about this. It's definitely going on YouTube, and it's gonna be fire as hell, and I'm gonna tell all my friends about it, and I'm gonna be so proud, and I'm gonna be like, did I do that?
Concert is over. Kind of fell apart towards the end, which is kind of sad because we worked kind of hard on this, like to do it correctly, but at least Oh, do you want us to like erase our markings or no? Okay. Shred. What is that shredded? No.
But that was definitely one concert for the books, man. Like, yeah, a broken string essentially is a catastrophe in a musician's world, but I really should not have just like darted it off stage like I did. Also, I would like to shout out my section mates. Thank y'all for like making that a little easier to deal with, because otherwise, oh my god, I would have been in such like a bad state of mind. It would have been so bad. So I'm really sorry you guys had to deal with all my chaos. I'll make sure I'll keep a set of strings for all y'all, so if any of this were to happen, you guys won't have to deal with this. Also, I'll see you guys at rehearsal later. This is so stupid.